Lord Mahavir and the Cowherder, a story of forgiveness. Have you ever been consumed by a wave of anger, so powerful that it feels like a fire within your very soul? A rage so blinding it distorts your perception of reality and whispers justifications for rash actions? In our modern world of constant pressure and misunderstandings, this feeling is all too common. But what if we had the strength to douse that internal flame with the cool waters of profound peace? Thousands of years ago, under the vast Indian sky, a simple cowherder was engulfed by such a fire. His path, however, was about to cross with a great enlightened soul, an encounter that would offer a timeless lesson in the face of fury. This is the story of Lord Mahavir and the cowherder. Our story begins on a warm, sun-drenched afternoon. The air was thick with the sweet scent of mango blossoms and the gentle hum of insects. Bhagwan Mahavir, the 24th and final Tirthankara of our present age, was journeying through the land. His steps were light, his presence exuding an aura of profound tranquility that seemed to calm the very earth beneath his feet. He sought no shelter, owned no possessions, and his heart was a vast ocean of compassion for all living beings. He arrived at a clearing on the outskirts of a village, where a magnificent banyan tree stood, its ancient branches reaching towards the heavens like a silent prayer. Here, Lord Mahavir settled into a deep state of meditation. He closed his eyes, and his consciousness withdrew from the world of sight and sound, journeying inward towards the eternal truth of the soul. He stood motionless, a living statue of serenity. Sometime later, a cow herder named Rudra arrived at the same clearing with his herd of cattle. Rudra was a man of simple means, his life governed by the rhythms of the sun and the needs of his animals. On this particular day, he was in a hurry. He had urgent business to attend to in the village and needed someone to watch over his cows. His eyes fell upon the meditating Mahavir. Seeing the ascetic standing so still and silent, Rudra mistook his deep meditative state for idle stillness. He approached Mahavir and said in a hurried tone, "O holy man, I must go into the village for a short while. Please keep an eye on my cows until I return. Do not let them wander off." Absorbed in the depths of his meditation, Lord Mahavir did not hear the cowherder's words. His senses were turned inward, and the external world had faded away. Rudra, however, interpreted the silence as an agreement. "He is silent, so he must have consented," he thought to himself. With a sense of relief, he hurried off towards the village, leaving his precious herd in the care of the silent ascetic. Hours passed. The sun began its descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. The cows, left to their own devices, did what cows naturally do. They ambled off in different directions, drawn by patches of lush green grass and the cool shade of distant trees. Soon the clearing where Mahavir stood in silent meditation was empty of all but him. When Rudra finally returned from his errands, his heart sank. His cows were gone. He looked around frantically, his eyes wide with panic. He saw Lord Mahavir still standing in the exact same spot, as motionless as the banyan tree beside him. A seed of suspicion began to sprout in Rudra's mind. He strode up to Mahavir and demanded, "Where are my cows? I left them in your care. What have you done with them?" Of course, there was no reply. Lord Mahavir remained in his state of unshakable meditation. The silence, which Rudra had earlier mistaken for consent, now felt like a deliberate and cruel mockery. His initial panic began to curdle into anger. How could this holy man, who was supposed to be compassionate, be so negligent? Consumed by worry and a growing sense of injustice, Rudra spent the next several hours searching the surrounding forests and fields. He called out their names, his voice growing hoarse with desperation. But his search was fruitless. As twilight deepened into night, he returned to the clearing, weary and defeated. And there, to his utter astonishment, stood his entire herd of cows, gathered peacefully around the still meditating Lord Mahavir. In his absence, the cows, having grazed to their heart's content, had naturally wandered back to the familiar clearing. But Rudra did not see it this way. In his anger-clouded mind, a different story took shape. This ascetic had not been negligent. He had been deceptive. He must have hidden the cows to torment him, only to make them reappear to mock his frantic search. The fire of his anger, which had been smoldering, now roared into a blazing inferno. "You trickster!" he screamed, his voice trembling with rage. "You toyed with me. You hid my cows and watched me suffer." Blinded by his fury, Rudra reached for the thick, coarse rope he used for tethering his cattle. He raised it high, intending to strike the silent, unmoving figure before him. In that very instant, as Rudra's arm was about to descend, a celestial being, a deva, appeared in a shimmering light between the enraged cowherder and the serene Lord. The deva gently but firmly stayed Rudra's hand. "Stop, foolish man!" the deva's voice boomed, not with anger, but with a profound sense of pity. "Can you not see? This great soul is in dhyana, a deep and profound meditation. He is not even aware of your presence, let alone your cows." Rudra, startled by the sudden appearance of the celestial being, could only stammer, "But he tricked me. He hid them." "His consciousness is far beyond this world," the deva explained patiently. "He seeks to sever the very bonds of karma that tie souls to this cycle of birth and death. He has no interest in your worldly possessions. Your cows wandered off and returned on their own. To harm him would be to bind yourself with the heaviest and darkest of karmas." As the deva spoke, the veil of anger began to lift from Rudra's eyes. He looked at Lord Mahavir, truly looked at him for the first time. He saw not a trickster, but a being of immense peace. He saw the utter stillness, the faint, compassionate smile on his lips, and he felt the powerful vibrations of serenity that emanated from him. Shame washed over Rudra. The fire of his anger was extinguished by a flood of remorse. He had been so consumed by his own anxiety and assumptions that he had come dangerously close to committing a terrible act of violence against a soul who wished him no ill. He dropped the rope, fell to his knees, and bowed his head in silent apology. He then gathered his cows and quietly departed, his heart forever changed by the encounter. Throughout this entire ordeal, Lord Mahavir remained undisturbed. Not a flicker of anger, not a wave of fear, not a single thought of retribution crossed his mind. He was an ocean of tranquility, and Rudra's anger was but a stone cast into its depths, creating a momentary ripple before disappearing without a trace.
This powerful story illuminates one of the most vital principles in Jain philosophy, Kshama, which means forgiveness. But Kshama is not merely the act of pardoning someone who has wronged you. It is a state of being. It is the intrinsic quality of the soul to remain unperturbed by the actions of others, to not allow anger to arise in the first place. Lord Mahavir's response to the cowherder was the perfect embodiment of Kshama. He did not need to forgive Rudra after the fact, because he never felt anger or resentment towards him. His peace was not dependent on Rudra's actions. It was an internal state, self-sufficient and unshakable. He understood that Rudra's anger was a product of his own delusion and suffering, his own karmic baggage. To react with anger would have been to entangle himself in that same suffering. In our lives, we are constantly faced with our own cowherders, people who misunderstand us, who act out of their own fear, insecurity, or ignorance. A colleague might take credit for our work. A driver might cut us off in traffic. A friend might say something hurtful. Our immediate, conditioned response is often to react with anger, to feel wronged, to seek retribution. Jain wisdom teaches us to pause in that critical moment. It asks us to look beyond the action and see the suffering that often fuels it. It teaches that anger is a poison we drink, hoping the other person will be harmed. Kshama is the antidote. Applying this ancient wisdom doesn't mean we become passive doormats. It means we choose a response that does not harm ourselves or others. It means we protect our own inner peace first. We can address a situation, communicate our feelings, and set boundaries. But we can do so from a place of calm and compassion, rather than from a place of reactive anger. This is the practice of true soul strength. It is choosing to be the ocean, not the stone.